What up, everyone? Don't forget to head over to the website. We are launching another Rocky Mountain retreat. It is going to be the end of March. The dates are on the website. So go over to the website, elliottmarshall.com, and you will find all of the information about it. So reserve your spot. Limited number of spots available. I like to keep it small. I don't want it too big. So if you are interested in coming to the Rocky Mountain retreat, 3 days, jiu-jitsu and mindset work, elliottmarshall.com. Let's go. What's up, guys? This is former UFC fighter Elliott Marshall, and you are listening to The Blueprint. I believe that there's a blueprint of how the most successful people structure their lives. They don't all do it the same. They don't all do the same things. And on this podcast, you're going to hear inspirations, motivations, and stories about how they go through their life. These stories will give you clues and tricks of exactly how you can discover your passion, find your power, and then go give your purpose to the world. Thank you so much for listening. Let's jump into this week's episode. Man, this episode of the podcast, this was a cool one. It is with Jake Arians. Jake is the son of legendary Super Bowl winning coach with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Bruce Arians. And man, we got to obviously chop it up about sports at the beginning. We love sports. And then taking those lessons that we both learned in sports, he got to be around some amazing athletes in both, like through his dad, Tom Brady, obviously. And then he played two seasons in the NFL. So taking that mindset and then moving into our life, into our businesses and all of that. So without further ado, here we go. Jake Arians. Jake, what's up, man? How are you?
Fantastic, brother. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks. Thanks for coming on, even though I just told you 2 seconds ago, I hate your team and I hate, I hate Tom Brady. So I appreciate you staying on the call.
I had a lot of respect for him, but he was not my favorite person until he immortalized my father either. But I mean, there's GOATs, and I think he's got to be at the top of the GOAT list at this point, don't you?
No,
I mean, leaving there.
No.
You don't think he's the top of the GOAT list?
No.
Now, here's what we always talk about on one of our shows. You have the greatest of all time and the best of all time. He's not even in the top 10 of the best of all time. But greatest of all time is when you throw in titles. He passed Jordan. He went to a new team and did it. MVPs.
He does not pass Michael Jordan. No.
The total number of titles. I'm a Jordan guy. We're close to the same age.
So hold on. Michael Jordan is the GOAT of all GOATs. My argument is that no one in life, in the history of the world, has done anything better than Michael Jordan played basketball.
I mean, you see over my left ear right here who's there. So I tend to be in agreement here. I'm just like, with the 7th title, my best stat with Tom Brady is who's been to the second most Super Bowls in NFL history? The quarterback. It's John Elway. He won 2. He went to 5. Tom Brady has more MVPs than anybody else has ever been to Super Bowls.
I agree. Football, he's the GOAT.
That's a giant stat.
Yeah.
But I mean,
he's the GOAT in football.
Either way, he immortalized my dad. We're good. I mean, Muhammad Ali, another GOAT right here.
Yep.
Babe Ruth, Wayne Gretzky. There's some great ones in sports. But I mean, it's funny because we talk about all the time, especially in your world. Guys get hurt. We don't have the career that you wanted, but the best of all time, the most talented guys, Tom's not on that list.
Not even close.
But neither's Peyton Manning, by the way. But guys with that intangible, that brain, that whatever it takes to become great. They both have that in immense quality. The things we can't put a quantitative date on.
Man, so you've been around it, I have kids, right? I have 2 boys and they love sports, right? And my weakness as an athlete was my mind. Okay. And I'm not the most athletic, but in the UFC, when I was fighting in the UFC, you didn't have to be the most athletic. Like you could get away on hard work, and get very far in hard work and grind and getting good. Now that's not the case. You have to be an athlete, but
and so well-rounded.
Yeah. And my mind wasn't the strongest. My mind developed forced upon me post-career. I have these 2 boys that they love basketball. This is just what they want. They are practicing and playing every single day. So I can't really help them with basketball skill too much. but I can help them in this area. So this is my question. You're around it, man. What's the difference? What does Tom Brady have? What does Tom Brady have so that what were the Bucs the year before?
We were 7-9.
7-9.
We had the number one offense in the league. They had the leading passer in the league, just had too many turnovers. You just needed that one guy to galvanize.
7-9 to Super Bowl is big. 7-9 to Super Bowl is big, right? It's like, you can go, the ownership would be happy with 7-9 to playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That would be a great step one year to the next year. But you guys went 7-9, add Tom Brady, bring in Gronk to Super Bowl. So what does this guy have, man? You're around him. You talk to him. Your dad's around him. What is it?
I think that the greats, when we're talking about GOATs, when we started the show, the Michael Jordans, the Muhammad Ali, definitely Tiger Woods, the chip on their shoulder. Tom still acts like he's the 6th round pick, 199th pick overall in the draft, comes in every day with this giant, massive, disrespectful chip. Tiger had it.
How does he do that? Because it's not true.
It's not true at this point. But I do think like he has this dark room in his house that's a bulletin board that like anybody that's ever said anything negative, like he just goes and drums up stuff.
What was that movie? Billy Madison.
Yeah, like the deep
Billy
parts of the web, and he like finds something in China that somebody said Tom Brady's no good. He puts a freaking bulletin board up there. Whatever drives him, it's more than anybody I've ever seen. And I've been around some unbelievable people and some great guys, but it's just every day at practice. Like he didn't want to, like this game this weekend against the Falcons meant nothing. He begged to play the whole game. He played almost the first half, and it meant literally nothing. We rested all kinds of guys. Right. And if you're going to rest anybody, it's Tom Brady. He wanted to play.
He can be, yeah.
It's just that every day in practice, everybody around me be great. And it's not great, be perfect. Practice perfect makes perfect, when you're going to play. But if you're not practicing perfect or in the way he wants perfect, you may think you're practicing hard and practicing good, but it's not exactly like he wants it. He'll go out and coach it and fix it. I mean, I think, the great thing there is having a coach on the field with his experience as well. But it's just different than anybody else, man. The locker room stuff, all that stuff's real. I mean, and they weren't great that next year. It took a while. We had a late bye week in week 13, and they needed to get healthy and get hot coming out of the bye. And we're down 21-0 to the Falcons coming out of the bye that week. And Tom throws for like 330 and 35 points in the second half. He bought in wholeheartedly with the coaching staff and what the offensive guys were trying to do. Team gelled around that. And then you get in the playoffs and you're hot. Nobody wanted to see that freight train coming.
No, look, it was the argument like this last weekend. I grew up right outside of Philly. So I'm an Eagles fan, and I'm also a Broncos fan because Philly, I'm more than anything, I'm a pit bull fan. So I love pit bulls. I've always had pit bulls. So the Michael Vick era hurt my heart. So even though now I love Michael Vick, but he's still doing it. He's still out there helping the dog community. So
I played with Mike and actually lived below Mike with pit bull puppies. He loved those dogs, man. It's just the culture he grew up in. I'm not going to make excuses for Mike because what he did.
Yeah.
I know him and I've seen him around the dogs, and it is. What part of Philly?
I grew up in Jersey. So I grew up right outside of New Jersey, a little town called Franklinville, New Jersey.
You know where Marlton is?
Yeah, of course I know where Marlton is.
I grew up in Marlton. I went to elementary school.
No way.
Yeah.
No shit.
Cherry Hills, Medford, Marlton, that whole area. My dad was at Temple.
Cherry Hill Mall, Deptford Mall, Echelon Mall. Those were the malls, right?
Absolutely. So my dad was at Temple. So I went to kindergarten to 5th grade, and we were living in Marlton. Right. So same story. I was a Flyers fan. I was never an Eagles fan at the time. But
so for me, I took a little break during the Michael Vick time because I wanted to see if he would actually really do it. So I became a little Broncos fan because my kids started getting whatever. But yeah, so I'm an Eagles fan. So this past weekend, last night in the Detroit Green Bay game, I don't want Green Bay to win because no one wants to see Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers, if they win that game, what's that, 6 games in a row? They're coming in 6 games in a row winning, and you have an all-time great quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. No one wants to see him.
No, it's getting.
So I'm rooting for Detroit because I want the Eagles.
Sometimes it takes a while to figure it out, but when they figure it out, the same thing with Tom. He hadn't been great this year. He's been far less than he was a year ago, where I think he should have been MVP over Aaron. But last weekend, we're in Tampa playing the Panthers for the division, winner take all. He shows up and throws for 444 touchdowns with a rushing touchdown. It's like he was the dude from last year. I've never seen anybody not play great all year and then flip a switch and say, okay, it's time to step it up. And have
I don't want to see Tom Brady. I don't want Yeah, I don't want to see Tom Brady.
Oh, you're Dallas. You don't want to come to Tampa this week.
No, you're fucked because you played like shit and you played your guys.
Yeah.
Right? You played your guys because you could have possibly been the number 1 seed. So you played your guys. You played terrible against Washington. You don't want to see Tom Brady. You kidding me? But it's that argument, and you guys are in and he's in. So, what was it like for you? Your dad, obviously, a great coach, like you said, immortalized by Tom Brady. As a Super Bowl winning coach now. What was it like for you first as a child? And growing up, because your dad's obviously he didn't start coaching like last year. He's been coaching your whole life. What was it like for you to be around athletes?
I get that question all the time, and my answer is always the same. I don't know any different, but the older I get, about to be 45 in a couple of weeks, you can really look at, okay, you grew up a lot different than everybody else. But I go back to being a kid when I'm in Jersey and I'm hanging out at Temple. One of my biggest influences very early on was not my dad, it was John Chaney, Temple basketball. John Chaney, Hall of Fame basketball coach, Mark Macon in those days. They'd let me hang out at practice as a second, third grader, walking around watching that stuff and watching him get on those dudes' asses.
Coach. So what did you learn from John Chaney?
Coach him hard but have the respect, and they knew that they loved him. So it didn't matter how hard they got on him, and he was hard on them, but they loved that dude, and it was all because they knew that he was trying to make them better, be as good as you could be to win. And I'm around that all the time. And then we moved to Kansas City, and then we're in Kansas City. I'm in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. Half of 9th grade. And this is the coaching staff. Marty Schottenheimer, Bill Cowher, Tony Dungy, Herman Edwards, my dad, Joe Pendry, Howard Mudd. Brian Schottenheimer was a ball boy that had just gone to college, so I kind of took his spot. I mean, the amount of stuff you soak up. So my first job was working for the Kansas City Chiefs. We go to River Falls, Wisconsin, and there were Cheese League training camp days for 6 weeks. And I'm around these guys every day, 2 practices a day, Marty Schottenheimer, 2 a days. My mom thought it'd be a great idea because I get to spend time with my dad. Well, he's working his 20-hour schedule. I'm working my 18-hour schedule. We had dinner together every night. That was about it. We didn't see each other as much as we did when he was home. But the amount of stuff, I say it all the time, like Brian Schottenheimer, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, we just kind of grew up different. The amount of stuff you soak in, I never got into coaching, those guys all did, but the amount of stuff you soak in from being around greatness and watching, if you really pay attention to how they all did it, there was a lot of things in common, but it was pretty awesome.
What's the number one thing that's in common that you would say?
I think work ethic. Like my dad kind of took a lot of stuff. Marty was a grinder. He's like Belichick. Those guys slept in the office. They had midnight staff meetings. Great coach, a lot of success. I think Marty still has like 250 wins in the NFL, whatever it is. My dad got a little bit later on, realized, okay, we don't need to try and reinvent the wheel. Get your work done, go home, have your family life, and let's try to have some balance. But I think the one thing all those guys had in common was doing whatever it takes to be as good as you can be. So that's early in the morning, that's late at night, put in the time. And then you get the nuances of coaching. Different guys, different personalities, coaches, players, coaches, guys that are really hard on them, guys that aren't. Then you kind of notice what works and what doesn't the older you get.
One thing that you hear a common theme in pro sports and a common theme, no, hold on, I'm gonna take it away, not pro sports. A common theme in high level performance with teams and let's say leaders and things like that. Like now I'm talking in your dad's realm, other coaches, like assistant coaches, is the backstabbing, bringing unity to the coaching staff so that, how did the best do it? Team, not me, but team. Because that's a very hard thing. Because on a football team, right, you got 54 players. How many coaches are on that staff? Anywhere
from 18 to 25, depending on the group. So like one thing drives me crazy. We're about to be in this cycle again with today's Black Monday, right? And
right.
That's, as a coach's kid, everybody calm down they are people, man. Today is hard for a lot of people.
Right. Yeah.
One thing it's going to drive me crazy because some owner's going to do it. Hire a coach because he likes the coach, doesn't have a big enough staff, so he wants to keep the defensive coordinator, where you instantly just split the locker room. Because the defense coordinator was there last year. If a defensive player has a problem, who's he going to? He's going to the guy he knows, not the head coach. Where you look at the 2 times my dad became a head coach, I had basically 25 uncles and now some aunts from my entire life. There's one dude at the top. There's one chief. There's one message. There's one everything. And everybody comes off of that. So going to your point with the backstabbing, the cohesiveness is there. There's none of that. It was all one goal, one team, one cause, he liked to say. And it was all based off trust, loyalty, and respect. But if there's not that one dude at the top, that you're all answering to, that you're all thankful that you got that job and that chance to work with. Andy Reid's a perfect example. Same kind of thing. They're all his guys. When you start having dissension, I don't know why owners don't figure this out. GMs don't figure this out. You start having dissension immediately when you hire somebody. It just doesn't work. You have backstabbing, you have self-promotion, you have guys like that. I've seen it work in Arizona. I've seen it work in Tampa now when you have one chief in charge and everybody kind of plays off of that.
There has to be, right? And then he can delegate, then he can delegate it down. Absolutely. But if he's,
and that's easier because you trust your guys, right? You know your guys. The other thing he always liked to say is we're way ahead of everybody else. I don't have to coach my coaches on what I want. So when they went to Tampa that first year, there wasn't 4 or 5 months of coaching my coaches on this is what I expect. They're all his guys, all the same guys from Arizona. They're coaching players already. They're getting months ahead because anybody new and any new staff's got to go. You have all that stuff of getting to know the other coaches and the head. What does the head coach expect? And what does he want? And if he's a new young guy, he doesn't even know what he wants. You're way ahead of a lot of people when you have that kind of camaraderie.
It's very interesting because I have a good friend who's the strength and conditioning coach of the Broncos, Lauren Landau. And he was my strength and conditioning coach when I was fighting. And, the Broncos just fired their coach. For my friend, I want him to keep his job, right? But I can totally understand how it probably shouldn't happen, because it's just, it's impossible. It happened last time, like they fired a coach and Lauren kept his job and they were terrible. It got worse. And a lot of people kept their jobs on, for example, the Broncos staff. And that was my biggest question is I just don't understand how it could possibly work.
Well, the Broncos with the new ownership, I think everything's on the table for them. The strength coaches, because there's so few really good ones like that, they can stay through a lot of coaches. And if you hire a young coach, same thing. He might not have a strength coach that he worked with in the past that he definitely wants to bring in. My dad did. And he wanted to start a sports science program, not just a strength and conditioning. So they wanted to measure all the metrics, even for an old guy, instead of just watching. He looks slower today. I think he needs rest. Let's go upstairs and check the GPS. Did he run extra? Was he running as fast as normal? Let's give him a couple of days off. All that kind of stuff that they wanted to implement. But my dad says all the time, I got fired however many times. No, you didn't. You only got fired a couple of times. The head coach got fired and everybody else got whacked along with it. And we knew we were moving, right? But strength coaches can be a little bit different, but that's pretty much par for the course. I mean, if you get fired, there's not a lot of guys that get kept, get held over, get kept. You get some cheap owners that want to do that. It's okay. I'm not going to fire everybody because I want to have this big bill that I'm going to pay him. I just want to fire the head coach, and those teams never win. And you see that.
Your dad didn't get really famous until Tom Brady, right? He was famous a little bit with Arizona, right? People have always liked him, I would say. What was that shift like for you, right? When obviously the Arians name really blew up, but it kind of, it wasn't huge before. And then all of a sudden, boom, what was that shift like for you?
It's funny you say that because it really kind of wasn't. But if you go back to 2012, he's the first NFL interim head coach to ever win Coach of the Year. He wins it again 2 years later in Arizona when he gets his first head coaching job. The winningest coach in Cardinals history, went to the NFC Championship. But it really wasn't until you win the Super Bowl, until you take outside of NFL circles to sports circles and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. The best thing I can say about him, he never changed. Is the exact.
How about you, though? What was it like for you?
It wasn't that different other than when we're hanging out. I mean, like going out and, okay, we can't go anywhere without him taking pictures, autographs. He's never going to turn one down because he'd always say it's a very fast elevator ride from the penthouse to the shithouse. Now he's like, he remembers the days where they were chanting his name in Pittsburgh and whatever else. And that comes with experience, but it's been interesting to go, okay, we've moved. My mom's moved 20 times. I moved 3 or 4 growing up every 3 or 4 years. And you got to start over you're kind of immortalized. You just went in the Ring of Honor in Tampa. You probably should go in Arizona. You're a borderline Hall of Famer. Life's a little different when you think about the legacy of what's been accomplished and really since age 60, like in the last 10 years, it's been kind of crazy. But that's really the biggest thing for me is just when we go places, people recognizing him and seeing it, it still kind of trips me out.
Now, you growing up, and this is, I don't want to say this negatively or poorly in a way, but this is always a question I have, right? Because it doesn't matter to you that your dad's an NFL coach when you're a kid. Like, it's cool now, don't get me wrong, right? Like, you grow up, you realize that yada, yada. But when you're 12, man, you just want like a dad. Like that's all of us want, right? Is like, you want a good parent. And, on the flip side, if you have a mom or a dad who has this like awful story that they were abused and beaten and yada, yada, and they have all these issues, you can realize that. But I mean, still at the end of the day, you don't really care. You just want a fucking parent that's going to take care of you. You have it in a different way of like, your dad's been all over and famous and yada, yada. What was that aspect like for you? Like when you're as a child, just, wanting like a dad, like a normal dad.
I got a rock star of a mom because my dad went around a lot. I mean, I'm lucky. I was, the boy of the family. I got to go to locker rooms. And when I spent time with my dad, he was taking me to work. So I'm going in at 5 o'clock in the morning and we're grabbing a breakfast sandwich. And I'm sleeping on the way into Philly from Jersey. And you know what that's like. I got lucky in that regard. I got to see him a lot more than my sister did. And she would have went to 4 high schools in 4 years. But when you live that life and it's glamorous and it brings a lot of rewards, but when you're talking about just having a dad, he wasn't there a ton. I mean, we're in Kansas City. We were talking about those hours. I'm playing starting quarterback, junior high at the biggest high school in Missouri. And he told the coaches, hey, I'm taking up running. I'm going to run for an hour and a half. So he would jump in his car, haul ass to Lee Summit from Kansas City, watch 30 minutes of my game and haul ass 30 minutes back, splash some water on his face like he went for a run and go back in the office. Fast forward to him becoming a head coach later on. He said, if you missed that game or that recital, I'm going to fire your ass. Your work will be here. Go get it, then come back and get it done. Come in early, whatever that is. Make that time for your kids because he didn't get a chance to do it. We have a great relationship. He's my best friend, but there's times that you damn sure wanted him there. And, when he was there, he's also exhausted. I mean, they work insane hours during the season. I don't think a lot of people realize how hard they work.
20, right? Like 20 is not abnormal for a lot of guys.
For 3 or 4 days. Yeah. I mean, I'll give you the example. Like Monday, for the average NFL coach, you're in there at 6, you're home at midnight if you come home. Tuesday's the same. Wednesday's about the same. Thursday, you're in there at 6 and you probably come home at 6 and you might see your kids and stuff that night. If you're not with a super grinding staff, and you might be 10 o'clock that night. Friday's about the same. Saturday morning's a walk through, Saturday night's the hotel, Sunday you play the game, Monday starts over. There's 7 days a week. There's never a day off. That's a coach's life. You tell me how many days in there they had dinner with their family. 2, maybe 3 before they go to the hotel on Saturday night, maybe after the game on Sunday. Little kids, tough. It's tough. It's like I said, my mom's a rock star. They've been married 52 years, been together since they were 16 years old. And she's the glue that kept everything together. And, the one that really raised us. My dad did the best he can, but you're working those kind of hours with that kind of grind, man. It's tough. It's tough to be there and be the parent you want to be and the professional you want to be.
How did you cultivate such a good relationship with your dad? But sometimes, that could cause a lot of resentment.
Yeah. I always looked at it as that's what he did for a living. I always understood from an early age, this is how we keep the lights on. It's how we have a roof over our head. Even though we might have to move, we're moving to a new place because that's his job. My mom was an attorney in 5 or 6 states, but was raising 2 kids and got tired of taking the bar. And she was in on supporting his career. So that's what we did as a family. So there wasn't that any resentment. I also wanted to be a player. I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be around him. I wanted to be in locker rooms, whether it was John Chaney or Ron Polk at Mississippi State, a legendary baseball coach that I was around. Lucky enough when I was in high school in Starkville. It wasn't just football guys, but that relationship with my dad, get to go in those mornings and grab that breakfast sandwich and then be in his office drawing, on the dry erase board and whatever it was and going to meetings. And that's kind of how we bonded. So I never had any, but I know a lot of kids that did.
That's good. Yeah. There's a lot of kids that do because it's not there for them. What have you been able to take from what you learned from your dad and all these other great people and apply to your life? Like what have you, because it's not sports, right? Sports don't really fucking matter. They do, but for most people, they don't, right? Like for your dad, for the Tom Brady's, and this is, the Michael Jordans, this is such a small percentage because I played a pro sport, you even played a pro sport, right? And you don't anymore, and no one knows us when we're walking down the fucking street. But you can apply it to your life and to your business and to how you do it. So first, let's go like what you do for a living. Like tell everyone how you've taken sports, what your dad showed you in that, and applied it there.
So the NFL stands for not for long, right? So I led the Bills in scoring in 2001. I played the whole season hurt, had reconstructive surgery, and I was done. Played 2 years, and that was it. But I had the job, had my Sports Center moment. and then you move on. And what I realized was kind of like you, I didn't realize that I was smart until later on in life, because it never was a priority for me. Sports were my priority. I didn't really care about my grades or learning anything. I learned later on that kind of have a photographic memory, been ADD my whole life. I think there's a common theme there with entrepreneurialism. So I can't do the same thing every day.
Right.
So at 25, I started a diamond business, started going to private clients, pro athletes. I still have that as a side gig today. I've got 9 different companies and 9 different genres that I own, operate, work for, whether it's diamonds, real estate, podcast, representing coaches. There's just all kinds of stuff that I kind of all run through a consulting company now. But it all comes back to those lessons you learn: teamwork, hard work. There's no substitute, period. It doesn't matter. Making that sacrifice, whatever that is, to be successful. I remember those days in 8th grade basketball, man, we ran a full court press. Your kids are in basketball now. So our coach was, the first 45 minutes of practice was no basketball. It was run your ass off until you could hopefully have legs enough to finish practice later. Because if you're going to run a full court press, that's what you're going to do. I remember those days like, man.
Can't get tired. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I remember just like, oh my God, but you get through it. And it makes you tough. It makes you mentally tough. That's a lesson at 45 that I learned at 8th grade or earlier, that you still rely on every day. Shit, I'm tired. I got 3 or 4 more hours of stuff to do. Oh, well, suck it up, buttercup. Freaking pull yourself up by your boots and let's go get it done. I don't think everybody has that mentality. I mean, you get it in the military, but I think sports is the ultimate equalizer when it comes to that. No substitute for hard work, dedication, sacrifice, all of those things to get to the end goal. And that's winning. And then you're in life, it's being a good husband, being a good father, being a good businessman, being a good member of the community, all those kind of things. But it all came from learning that in sports, 100%.
Yeah, sports. I won't say that other things don't do it, because like you can definitely get it other ways. But there's nothing like sports. There really isn't, because your hard work generally does pay off up until a certain level. But like, your dad says, go play more. And you're in 8th grade, go practice, and you practice more, and you actually you're like, oh shit, I'm better. So yeah. Obviously there comes a point where the athleticism and things like that come into play, but the key is to be able to take those things, right? To take those lessons, those little gems and pieces of gold that you learn, and then move them into the next thing you are doing, right? So how did you do that with your NFL career? Because like you said, reconstructive surgery and then gone out of the NFL, right?
Yeah. So you hold out that dream for a while. You go to a couple workouts, you hope you're going to go to camp, and then everybody goes to NFL training camp and you're not there. And you go, well, shit, that money from the last 2 years is it's not going to last forever. I'm 24, 25 years old. What the hell do you do?
Hold on, man. How much? Like you telling me 3 million, 4 million don't last for the rest of your life?
Shit, I made 210,000 my second year and made 90 or 120,000 my first year on the practice squad, and that was double. Coach Reeves took care of me in Atlanta, so they didn't want me to leave. I was going to take over for Morton Anderson. And
so
then
you made 300 grand in 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not a lot of money.
25, but it ain't lasting very, very long. And I recognize that. So it's time to, okay, and it's hard for a lot of guys. I tell guys that are playing all the time now, figure out what you want to do next and start doing it while you play. Because even if you play 13 years in the NFL, you're 35 years old when your career's over. There's a lot of life left. There's a lot of great life left. There's a lot of really cool things you can do. But like everybody, and I did this too, sit on the damn couch for 6 months going, shit, how long do I hold this dream? If my entire job is going to work out and kick and get my body prepared to go play, there's a lot of hours left in the day to be doing something. And it was take that dedication, finally give up the dream and move on to 10. I found that I loved business plans. I love building businesses. I loved a multitude of businesses. And it really came down to the business plan. And then I never knew I was kind of entrepreneurial minded until it just kind of started happening, and find different nooks and stuff that you wanted to jump into. And it came down to like, okay, but it's all the same stuff. It's all the same discipline that you wanted to implement into your life. I love working for myself because I'm not a morning person. I sleep like crap. So I'm not a get up at 5 a.m. kind of guy. I'm not one of these. I've tried all that stuff. It's awesome. But if my phone's with me, I'm working. So I'd rather work at midnight than 5 a.m. But that's my schedule. Sure. I can do it. It all comes down to getting it done when you need to get it done.
Yeah. What was that like for you, that 6 months? Because I think a lot of people, and this is just more for the people, because obviously it's very depressing when you've committed your whole life to something, right? Yeah. And then it doesn't work out, and then obviously I've been you too, right? In the what the fuck am I going to do now? right? Like, so what was that 6 months like? And then how did you get yourself out of that?
I think it's being depressed, but not knowing at the time that you're depressed. I mean, this is 20 years ago at this point. But you look back now and go, okay, if you're sitting around on the damn couch and you're just trying to figure it out, and it's what the hell do I do next? That's a form of depression for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you get out of it? I kind of got lucky. I mean, I just kind of started getting driven for other things and the love of football. And then I think being around it from a young age too, I saw the business side of football, not the romance. I've saw guys, my favorite players, they got a little older and the team was done with them and they moved on. And they couldn't get another job and their career was over. I've seen guys get hurt. There were superstars that never played, first round picks that break an ankle in training camp and never play. And then watch them without a college degree go do whatever. I went back to school, finished my degree. That was the first thing I did. But it was kind of finding that passion for other things and just kind of saying, shit, man, life is long. But I think it's funny. I've never thought about it until you just asked the question. I think a lot of it was seeing the professional side of professional sports is ugly. They don't care, man. It's cutthroat. They will move on to the next dude in a heartbeat, then leave you with the bag of your life to figure out what the hell you do with it next. I think seeing that my whole life really helped, but it was still 6 months on the couch, man. I don't know any. I don't care who you are. Tom Brady's done at 23, 4 years in the league, whatever it is. He's already got a 10-year contract to go to Fox and be on TV. There's still going to be a couple months of reflection, take it all in, figure it all out. Little woe is me, little, oh, that was pretty cool. Like all those damn things go into that.
Look, you said it. They don't care who you are because Indy chewed up and spit Peyton Manning out when they were done with him, right? And the same thing happened to Tom Brady in New England. They were done with him. They needed to move on. And that, boom. Like, so you're talking about Tom Brady's obviously number one. Peyton's somewhere in the top 5 quarterbacks of all time, right? So you're talking about 2 top 5 players of all time. Their teams just said, fuck off, basically.
Peyton's was a neck. It was an injury. They were worried about it. They had the first pick. They thought they could take Andrew back, and they were in a great situation. Okay, if you're going to do it, let's move on. Andrew should have been a Hall of Famer and played a long, long time. He had his injuries. Tom's was, okay, you've been here forever. We've been to 10 Super Bowls. We don't think you're as good as you've been. The team's not that great. Okay, and they were cheap the whole time and let him hit free agency. And he said, okay, I'm going to go do it somewhere else. Then left. And I put that chip kind of back on his shoulder we were talking about earlier. But if it could happen to them, they could damn sure happen to everybody, man. That's why I said
everybody,
not for long. And they don't give a damn who's on the back of the jersey. They care about the front of the jersey.
And everyone wants to do this whole fair thing, right? And
life ain't fair, man.
Life ain't fair, man.
My mom told me
life ain't fair.
I mean, the earlier you figure that out, the better off you're going to be.
Mike, I say it to my kids all the time, like, Dad, that's not fair. I'm like, you're right. So what?
That's my whole thing with participation trophies. I think it's one of the biggest detriments to society we have going on.
I don't care if they're under 6. I don't care if they're 5.
We got a different mentality when it comes to that. But at the same time, but my point is, and there's a valid point here, you learn as much from losing as you do from winning. That is the game of life. That's what we learn from sports. Giving me a participation trophy for showing up ain't what's going to happen the rest of my life. I don't get one at 45. There's no participation trophy for me now. It's, do you have the mortgage and the freaking payment to put food on the table and everything else? That's all they ask you now. There's no participation trophy. We're teaching kids at an early age that life is fair, and it's not.
It's not. And look, this is my whole, and I agree with you on the participation trophy. I talked my kids into throwing them away. Because they would get them and I didn't want to take them away at 5, but I'd be like, man, what do you think about this? But everyone tries to say that kids have changed. And I just wholeheartedly disagree with the fact that kids have changed, because kids pop out a blob of living flesh, right? And they've been popping out a blob for thousands and hundreds of thousands of years. So that has not changed. What's changed is what we do to them. What we do to them the second they pop out. Because you have kids right now in Africa who are 1 year old, can barely talk, but can walk a mile, get water for the family, and bring it back. That kid ain't special, because every kid in Africa in that village is doing that. Mm-hmm. So if that's possible, right? And I'm not saying that's right. And I'm not saying that's what we want for our kids.
But it's life.
But that's life for them, right? And no, that's not fucking fair. But if that's what's possible and those kids can do that, then man, giving our kids these making them soft so that when they turn 18, they've never experienced any failure in their life whatsoever. I just can't grasp it. We have to prepare them to deal with hardship unless the world is hard enough on them. And then if the world is hard enough on them, okay, we can do some things to like make their life easier. But your kids and my kids, no, man. The world's easy enough. Like, we just spent 3 weeks in fucking Maui. I don't need to make your fucking life easier. I need to make your life harder.
On a daily basis. And
Every
for little
day.
things. You forget to clean up your room, there's consequences. I mean, going back to my mom, man, it was every day was, and it's always funny, the older I get, all the same shit comes out of my mouth. Every decision you make has a consequence, good or bad. You're going to live with the damn consequences. You think about those choices before you make them. I've always grown up priding myself on saying, if I fuck up, I'm the first one to say, my bad. I own it, take it on the chin. It is what it is, move on. I think we lost a lot of that in the world at the same time. There's no accountability from kids growing up because of the softness, and everybody's always making an excuse for them, and they never have to face the consequences of their actions because everything's handed to them and too damn soft. You go back to the lessons.
And then they grow up to be adults, and now here we are.
Yeah. And we got an entire
and now we have adults.
On the second one of nobody wants to work. There's no work ethic. You go back to those lessons of you want to puke in practice and you're dying, but being that starting point guard and making that coach happy and making your buddies is more important to you than how bad you feel. If you've never been through any of that stuff, man, like I go back to college, 5 a.m. workouts in the wintertime. College football was brutal. The entire point was just, wouldn't get you in shape. It was to beat the shit out of you at 5 o'clock in the morning to toughen you up. And my God, it works. But if you've never been through that in your life, man, you don't know that that's what makes you tough. That gives you that ability in the hard times.
Yeah, I can remember it's just brutal. One of the best practices that I learned the most from was Greg Jackson took us to Albuquerque. We were in Albuquerque, you know, because that's where his gym is. And we didn't do anything. We didn't do any fight specific thing. We had to go run these sand dunes, and we like up to your knees, and it was hard. We run it 10 times. And then okay, we think we're done. And we're not. We then had to carry each other. And it was me and Rashad Evans. You know who Rashad Evans is?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's me and him. He's my partner. And he's crying. And I'm crying. I literally said goodbye to my wife because I didn't have kids yet. In my head, I thought this was it. I was like, there's no way I get off this hill. I don't get off this mountain. This is where I die. And I was just better at fighting the next day because the line of what I thought I could do got pushed back because I knew I could take more.
The level of deepness you can dig was deeper than you thought it ever was.
And it's not smart training. No sports strength coach would be like, oh yeah, like that, man, let's go do that. That it's stupid. It risks massive injury, right? Because you don't have a stable step and yada, yada. But we've got to be able to do this in our lives. Because it's not always safe and secure and fair. And now look, I think people in our positions, we have succeeded. It's our job to try to make it fair for other people. I'm not trying to say that we should keep the unfairness of the world going, but that's in a bigger sense. But when I'm talking to some kid from South Central, from the South Side of Chicago, I can't tell him it's not fair because he's black and I'm black, and you've been around black people your whole life. If you tell him it's not fair, where does he go with that? Where does he fucking go with that? In my opinion,
that's a great question. I'm not sure. I mean, I go back to the bigger picture. I mean, one of the things I think I'm most proud of, and I think my dad's biggest part of his legacy is not winning a Super Bowl. That's what he's done for in Arizona, having the first 2 African-American coordinators, the first time they ever had 3 in Tampa with an assistant head coach. So the top 4 guys, his top 4 lieutenants were all minorities. First guy to hire a woman in Arizona, first guy to have 2 on his staff there. I mean, I've been around that. I've seen it my entire life. That's huge. That's breaking the barrier, but that's telling somebody that it wasn't fair. I'm trying to do something about it.
Right.
Question, yes. I don't know what it takes that as,
What you tell them is it's on you, motherfucker, in my opinion. It's on you.
It is.
Of course, it's not fair.
I mean, sometimes the South Side of Chicago might not be the best example because getting out of there is really hard unless you're an athlete or you just say. But to your point, I'm doing what society's doing right now, making it easy. Put it on your freaking back and get the fuck out if you don't like it.
Yeah. And look, it's not fair. And I get it. Most of those kids don't make it out. So we, as the upper echelon of people, have to do things to help them get out, but you can't go in there and be like, man, you know what? It isn't fair. Like the cops are going to pull you over, which, and this can all be true, right? This can all be true. Right. But if you say that to them, what do they do with that? I just don't know where you go with that as like, other than a woe is me, it's not fair attitude.
You either make excuses and stay right where you're at, or you say, this is the cards I've been dealt, and I'm going to do the best I can and make this the best poker hand ever and live my freaking life, man. It's at a young age, it's a hard thing to say.
It's a hard thing.
It's a hard thing to say. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to do everything I take. I think a lot of it comes down to parenting. A lot of it comes down to influences in your life. Another thing you learn from sports is I had great coaches that weren't my dad. He let my coaches coach me. I didn't come home and then had to hear it from him. I'd come home and tell him, man, we learned this day. He's like, that's great. Need to leave it at that. But I was lucky. I had great coaches, I had great influences in my life. My dad always said, I'm not a father figure. I'm the cool uncle you would have a drink with. But he was to a lot of guys, that influence in their life, that male influence in their life that they could lean on, that they could do anything with. I was lucky enough to have that. People don't. And that's unfair too. And it sucks. I mean, I think the biggest thing we can do, going back to your point, is be that for people. Even if you're not in coaching, you can still be that for somebody.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think you felt this too, like you just said, your dad and your parents, your mom and dad, they're only going to be able to do so much.
Yeah.
And then you're going to need these other mentors and leaders in your life that are going to help hopefully reinforce what your parents established already for you. Excuse me. But even if you didn't, give it to you. And you really need that. And that's what we really need to be doing is spending time with people and trying to bring them up.
It's hard too at that age. You want to be with like-minded people. You're worried about popularity, you're worried about fitting in, all that kind of stuff. But your like-minded person might be somebody that you respect, you don't hang out with very much. Somebody that's got their grades, that's going somewhere. And that's the person you need to be surrounding yourself with instead of the ones that you're with every day. That's a hard thing to do too at that age, man.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I always like to end the conversation with these two questions. And this first one, please, not in a like, oh, like Ellie, it's cool in any way, but I'm trying to like really get people to understand that everything doesn't have to be this monetary return of investment on time, Absolutely. So my question is, like, man, we got introduced to a great friend of mine and an old friend of yours, Megan Onan. And you just said yes so quickly to coming on this podcast. And man, this podcast isn't going to do shit for you, bro. I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not Tim Ferriss, right? Like there's you will not see any uptick in your businesses or anything like that. And man, you took an hour out of your day. You wanted to do it. You made sure we were still on today. And it seemed very genuine. Why do that? Why with some guy that, look, we never even met before. Right. And look, you're Bruce Arians' kid. Your dad could open plenty of doors. You could probably get on Joe Rogan's podcast if you want to get on Joe Rogan's podcast.
I doubt that. But...
Yeah, you probably could, or a massive podcast, let's say. So why take the time?
One, you never know, especially the entrepreneurial mindset. You never know. One, I'm going to gain a friend. Two, I mean, I knew enough. We have a mutual friend. She thought we hit it off, which we did. I now have a new friend. That's badass. An hour of my day. Man, growing up the way I did, and my wife and I talk about this all the time. I think of my life as a dartboard. That freaking bullseye is your inner circle. Those are your ride or die. Like that is a tiny spot of that dartboard. And it starts getting bigger as you go out. And everybody in your life, I say this all the time, will prove to you if you let them fit in there. You don't have to fit them in wherever. They will prove you where they fit in your life on that dartboard. I do that all the time. And it's like, okay, you meet good people. But if I trust somebody and they put us together, that's damn sure worth my time to meet a new friend, do something. I know you're an entrepreneur. We might have business contacts. Eventually we could share some different stuff. Another businessman to bounce ideas off of. Networking is a giant part of life as an adult. If you let it be, it damn sure is a giant part of being an entrepreneur, business person that's out in the community doing those kind of things. It's a great opportunity for me to talk about something other than football on a podcast, to get on and talk life and talk about business and talk about all these philosophies and stuff. I don't get to do that very often. It's all about fantasy football and sports gambling and all football, right? To me, it was easy. It was, hell yeah, I want to do it. I'll make sure I got an hour out of my day to go do something new, something fun, meet somebody new with no monetary reward. I don't give a shit. I mean, if I got paid for every hour of the day that I work, I make a hell of a lot more money than I do. It is.
But that's not the life, man. That's not the life, right? Everyone thinks that's what it is. But as entrepreneurs, and we're trying to work, and you work and don't get paid, and then you don't work and get paid. That's
people like my wife is corporate banking. That's all she knows. Whatever.
Right.
You had a business deal on the beach on vacation. She's like, "You're taking the call?" Hell yeah, I'm taking the call. The call came in. That's how this works. You're on one of 5 weeks of vacation you have for the year. I'm on vacation, but not when the phone rings. That's the difference. That's how it is.
I'm going to work for this 2 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes, whatever it is. And hopefully that will make it so I don't have to work. I don't have to work for the rest of my life.
You're like, hey, you remember that thing I was working on a year ago and I told you about all this? She's like, yeah, vaguely. And well, it finally just came to fruition.
It paid off.
We're going to want this. But that's part of networking and putting things together, not being in a hurry, trying to make it happen. I say this all the time, man. As a young guy, you want to hit home runs. You want a big business deal, whatever. You know what makes you succeed in life? Hitting a bunch of damn singles. The score ends up being the same, but it's a hell of a lot easier hitting singles than it is hitting home runs. You put enough of those together, those singles make you successful.
And then every once in a while you get a home run. You're like, oh shit, look at that. You're like, oh damn, I happen to close my eyes, swing the bat, and then there it went,
But if you're trying to all the time, you strike out a lot. And that's part of life too. Strike out and get your ass back up to the plate. But it's a lot easier trying to hit singles than it's trying to hit a home run. Strike out enough, it can beat you down.
True. Especially early. Especially early, right? Success early is so key. Small success. You don't need these just little things, just little wins. Like everyone tries to make it so big. And it's so hard to do that early, So last question is, I believe everyone has this unique gift in them, this power that they have, that they go out and they give it to the world, and then the world gives something back in return. Tom Brady's case, it's football. He's a great football, and that told him how to be a leader, and it's giving him something back. Everyone's got something. What's yours?
Oh man. This should have been like in the original email prep. Like, hey, think about this one.
I don't want anybody to get prep. No.
I think the power to get up, man, to move on to what's next. I think it goes back to, I'm in 5th grade and my dad tells me, come home. Hey, I got fired today. We're moving. And then watching him try to get a job, and then we're moving to Kansas City. And he shows up to a basketball game in 9th grade, which we just talked about. He was never there. And I'm like, oh shit, this ain't good. And he puts his arm around me walking out like, we got whacked today. We're moving. And we moved to Starkville, Mississippi. From Philly to Kansas City to Starkville, Mississippi. That's some adapting.
Yeah.
Make it up as you go. I think that's probably the biggest thing I could say, that it might be, I can move on from somebody. If it's not, we're not vibing. I don't care that you've been around for 30 years. You proved to me where you fit in the dartboard. I can move on. I can adapt. Whatever's next, I can move on to. I can leave that behind and do that. It's not always a good thing, but it allows me to, I think, be successful and not be dragged down by a lot of things that drag a lot of other people down that they let them.
Yeah, man. I just learned how to move on literally last year. And that's I would hold on to dear life to anyone that showed me any love at any point, and I'd be like, oh no.
My wife's the same way. I mean, big time.
It's hard.
We talk about it all the time, and you just got to point it out and say, hey, she loves that analogy. When I say they prove to you where they fit in your life, just let them. Quit making excuses for people. They show you where they belong in your life and how much. And that's somebody that you've known for 4 weeks can have better intentions for somebody that you've known for 14, 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
They prove it to you. You just got to let them. You just got to be honest with yourself. But it is, man. Moving on is extremely hard. But I think that's one of those things I learned at an early age. I always kind of looked forward to whatever the next chapter was. There wasn't any, oh, this sucks, woe is me, whatever. We're a family. We're going to move on together. I'll make the best of it when I get there. And I've kind of learned to make the best of whatever's next the rest of my life.
Oh, yeah, man. I appreciate coming on. Tell everyone if they want to reach out or talk to you, social media, all that stuff. Plug it away. Whatever.
I'm still yet to get on the old book, but Jake B. Arians on Twitter and Jake Arians on Instagram. Yeah, reach out, hit me up, all the above. There'll be more of this kind of stuff. This season's about over, but I should have my own sports gambling podcast going again next year, and hopefully we got some big things in the works. And AriansFamilyFoundation.com. Read, that's really the biggest important part of the the my mom's
AriansFamilyFoundation.com.
Yeah, so my mom's worked with foster kids for my entire life. That's the biggest passion of the family.
Man, I know the season's almost over, so worst of luck to you in the playoffs.
The Broncos aren't in. Philly's
I don't know what I'm going to do, man, because I've hated. I told you I grew up an Eagles fan, so I hate Dallas. I fucking hate Dallas, right? I grew up hating Dallas. I don't know what to do this weekend.
Nobody I'm going to root for the Bucs.
I'm going to root for Tampa Bay because of us.
If you're a Philly fan, you want a rematch from last year. You want Tampa coming to you.
Yeah, I want Tampa coming to us. So let's go.
Number one seed. You should be big favorites in that one. That's what you should want.
That's I agree, and I can't root for Dallas, so fuck it. That's it. I appreciate it, man. I really enjoyed this podcast. We started sports, right? Like Tom Brady, greats, and yada yada, and we were able to take it somewhere else. And that's one of the things that is one of my favorite things, is starting some commonality and find some different commonality in a conversation. So I appreciate it. We'll keep in touch. I'll text you this weekend, see how the games are going. But guys, as always, Jake has his thing, his unique gift that he goes out and he gives to the world, and then the world gives so much back to him. And I have my own power that I go out and give to the world and do my thing, and it gives me something so great back. Don't go out in the world and try to be Jake, and don't go out in the world and try to be me. Everybody go out there, please, and find your own power. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found something useful that you can take and implement into your life. Don't forget to head over to wherever you are listening to this podcast and leave a review. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, go follow me on social media at FireMarshal205 on Instagram. Leave a comment, anything that you would like there. And as always, if you think this would be useful for somebody else that you know for their life, send it their way. That would be greatly appreciated. That's it for this episode, guys. I hope you all have a great day, and you go step into that power so that you can give your purpose to the world.